Evening, everybody. We'll wait a minute or two to see if anybody else joins us. A couple of other people are supposed to be here. We'll wait till 7:03. More person. I was going to bring up a Yerushalmi on screen for those who don't have one. So just give me a second here. Okay. Share the screen. And you see that? Is that you make it out? I can make it bigger.
I think it's good.
Everybody can see it?
Maybe a little bit bigger.
Maybe zoom in a bit, and then when we got up to the
Okay, that should be good, right?
Yeah, it's good.
Okay, so the Mishnah obviously is not always, but the Mishnah usually is the same in the Bavli as in the Yerushalmi. One thing between Bavli and Yerushalmi is that in Yerushalmi, everything starts with Daf Aleph and not with Daf Beis. And you can darshan that many ways, but the simple understanding is that in Italy, when the first Shas was printed, the custom was to give the title page the description of Daf Aleph, page 1, and the first page of text is page 2. In the 19th and 20th century, by the time the Yerushalmi is being printed in Vilna, there was no such convention. So therefore, as we are used to today, the first page of text was given the Daf Aleph. So Yerushalmi always starts in Daf Aleph as opposed to Daf Beis. If you want darshan, you could darshan. Yerushalmi came first, so Yerushalmi starts with Aleph, and Bavli, which came second, starts with Beis. Also darshan that says since Yerushalmi was written in Eretz Yisrael, so therefore, it's first in stature. Bavli is written Bavel. It's second in stature. Interesting about in general about Yerushalmi is that it's as we'll get to Gemara, you'll see it's very, very different than the Bavli. There are no restraining on Yerushalmi. There are bits and pieces, and there's a perush in the back of the Yerushalmi quote Tarasu Shal Rishonim, which brings down from the Rishonim their commentaries on the Yerushalmi, but no Rishon wrote Keseder or Perish on the Yerushalmi. That's a very big nafkamina, because in the Bavli, you're Meshubah to Rashi. And after that, you're Meshubah to other Rishonim. In Yerushalmi, there are no Rishonim who wrote consistently. So therefore, you're not Meshubah to anybody. In other words, in Yerushalmi, unlike the Bavli, you have direct access to the text. That means you're not mechuyev to the Pnei Moshe, who's the parish on the inside, or the Radbaz, who's the Radbaz parish on the outside. The Pnei Moshe lived in the 1700s. He was a Rebbe of the Gra at one point, and when the Gra was pretty young. And so that gives you an idea of his time frame. The Radbaz lived in the late 19th, early 20th century. He was for a short time the rabbi in Chicago. He was run out of town by the mafia because he tried to get involved in kashrus. So actually, the Vilna edition of the Yerushalmi was funded by the Radbaz, and that's why his parish appears here. Actually, happens to be an excellent parish. There's no reason why it shouldn't appear. The other parushim on the Yerushalmi, I have my favorites. We'll get to them as we go along. But again, there's no Rashi, and also there's no Bach. We don't realize how many times the Girsa has been changed by the Bach, and we feel Meshubah to the Bach's changes. But there are no Girsos, there's no Bach on the Yerushalmi. There are many different people who give different ideas. There is one extant complete manuscript of the Yerushalmi. It's called the Leiden manuscript because it's in Leiden it's found in Leiden in Holland. There are no other complete manuscripts. Yerushalmi, there are fragments here and there. So when we come to Yerushalmi, a lot of times the Girsos, because it wasn't worked over by someone like Rashi or any other Rishon, are subject to question. And we'll see an example of that when we start the Gemara tonight. So let's see the Mishnah. Ketzayim nasim zomrim. How do Eidim become Eidim Zomrim? Minim on the Shplinish, Ben Gusha Chalutza. We say, that's sorry. Somebody said sorry? No. Okay, so Ben Gusha and Chalutza. Eidim Mimia says that Ben Gusha Ben Chalutza Tachtav. We don't say that this person should be a Ben Gusha Ben Chalutza instead of this person. Elos Lokar Boim. He gets Malchus Arboim. Mino Bishpon Shuchai goes in Mimia Yigolas that Tachtav. We don't say this person goes instead. Lokar Boim, he gets Malchus. Of course, this is the second Mishnah in Makkos in the Bavli. It's in here in the first Mishnah. The order, the Mishnah is sometimes they're cut up differently in the Yerushalmi and the Bavli. Eventually, he would be mechuyev in the ksuba. Omni kamadam would say ksubasa shelzu she'im nis amanis kashavim if she gets widowed or divorced, she'll inherit her ksuba. If she dies, her husband will inherit her. Okay, so now let's start the Gemara. I read the Mishnah quickly because I'm assuming you all know the Mishnah. Everybody's included in lo sana brecha shaker, which is the law for Eidim line. Yotza vasisim lo kasher zamam lo achiv. We have an exception, which is a unique punishment of kasher zamam asos lo achiv. Now, even according to Rabbi Yehuda, holds lav shein bo ma'aser like love, so you can get malchus on the lav of lo sana. Nevertheless, the punishment of Eidim Zomim is different than a punishment for regular Eidim who are liars. Eshad yochel l'kaim bo vasisim lo kasher zamam. Those who you can fulfill with them, kasher zamam, v'gomer, at mekayim bo. You fulfill the isser lo. You fulfill the parameters of. Well, you know what? I have to give this away. The Ritbaz and others that have a girsa here that it should be not at Mekayim, but ein at Mekayim. I'll show you at the bottom of the page here. The Gilin Ephraim was one of my favorite Meforshim. He says, and the Ritbaz says the same thing. Shad yochel kayim basisin lo kasher zoma v'gomer ein at Mekayim bo lo sana. Vesh ein at yochel kayim bo basisin bo at Mekayim bo lo sana. Okay, so already right off the bat with Yerushalmi, we have a change in girsa, which everybody makes, because otherwise the Gemara doesn't make sense. So everybody puts in right here she'ein at mekayim bo lo san not right. Sislo kasher zamam. And I went. I go back. So again, eshat yochel. Let me start the beginning of line. Eshat yochel kayim bo. Sislo kasher zamam gomer. So you do kasher.
Recording in progress.
The ein at mekayim bo. Ein mekayim bo. Ein mekayim bo lo sana. Sorry, I read it wrong. So let me just go back again. If you do kasha zaman, you don't do lo sana. Again, according to Rabbi Yehuda, we give Makkos lavshe aimbo ma'isa. So if you do kasha zaman, you don't do lo sana. So only one or the other. And here, of course, they take out the ain. This ain is removed. Okay, we actually took this ain and put it back here. So, when you can't do basis lokasha, at mekayim bo losana breach, then you fulfill a losana breach. Okay, so again, even though losana is the law for everything, kasha zaman is a specific punishment which is given to Eidim Zomim, which is distinct from the regular punishment given for losana. Either if like hold like it's lav shem myself like let me get Makkos. If you don't know the Rabbi Yehuda, so then you don't get anything. But kasher zamam is a specific subset, a subcategory of lo sana b'echad shoker. Now the next Gemara says, davar acher basisem lo lo lazara. Now here I want to share with you a parish from the Mashbiach. The Mashbiach, which we'll see in a moment. Here. Okay. The Mashbiach, I will make it larger. I see there's somebody in the chat. You can't hear? Eitan, you can't hear?
No, I got it.
Fine. Okay. So let me make this larger. Now, this sefer called the Mashbiach was written by a rabbi in Pittsburgh. He died in 1935. His name was Rabbi Sibitz. And the Chavetz Chaim gave him askama to the sefer. I have it here printed out from Hebrew books. And in the askama, he says, Ki bilade sefer hamashbiach without the sefer, you can't understand the Yerushalmi. Now it's an amazing statement. I think you can understand Yerushalmi without the Mashbiach, but the Chavetz Chaim said, without the sefer written in Pittsburgh in the early 20th century, you can't understand the Yerushalmi. So that's a pretty good shvach, and it's a good sefer. So he says, here he brings down the girsa of our Gemara as it appears in front of us, and then he changes it. Okay, Nidrach l'hapo kana girsa. So he changes the girsa of the Gemara. This is the way to read the Gemara. Rabbi Yossi Darish the lo saneh. Rabbi Yossi Darish lo saneh leka b'eidim zomim. The lav lo saneh doesn't apply to eidim zomim at all. Everything is kulo sana. Then vasilo kasher zamam was excluded. The Gil Satorah rat vasisem lo kasher zamam. The lo yosef. L'chein, therefore, eshat yochol l'kaim bo kasher zamam ein atam l'kaim bo lo sana. So he says kasher zamam is not part of lo sana. It's separate. And therefore, when you can do kasher zamam, there is lo sana is not applicable. Let's explain. Let's wait a minute. If kasher zamam doesn't apply, lo sana, then you can do lo sana. You have a shuv and levi omer. Mikan atayodea ki lo saneh lekab edim zomimi. Lo saneh doesn't apply. Shnei dvarim hamasuin lebeistin. When you have, so from this we learned that when you have two things which are punishments imposed by Beistin, to face rak ach echad mehem, you only do one of them. Udrasha zos michdei rishoso nafka kamavur babavli Yerushalmi. So he says this is what Rabbi Yosef Achina is trying to say is that this drasha of Kidei Rishoso, they mishum risha achas at your mechayvo biata mechayvo shtei mishtuyos, which is in the Bavli. It's not and Yerushalmi elsewhere as well. He's saying it in Rabbi Shimon Levi is saying in a different way. There's a different drasha for it. Rabbi Shimon Levi says shnei dvarim so based in atovis rak echad mehem, and because it says vasisem lo, and it's the next thing it says vasisem lo darshina l'drash acheres vasisem lo v'lo l'zaro. So the also darshan from this vasisem lo we'll see another drasha vasisem lo l'zaro. The tevas davar acher. Now, let's look back in the Gemara itself for a second. Then we'll come back to this. Tell me if I'm going too fast. Okay, so Rabbi Shimon Levi Amar Vasisim Lo Shnei Dvarim Mitzvah based on Atoybes Echamen Yotza Davar Shu Maser LaShamayim. Right. So that's something which is Maser to Shamayim. Obviously, whatever Hashem does is Hashem's chesed. But when Basin has two alternatives, they can only do one alternative, not two alternatives. Okay. So the now here before this it says these words davar acher. Okay. So davar acher seems to be going in Rabbi Yosef Chanina and saying basisem lo v'lo l'zara. The words davar acher almost never appear in the Yerushalmi. So not a Yerushalmi statement. Even in the Bavli, davar acher doesn't usually appear. So unless you find it in the Medrash, you don't usually find it in Gemara. So what does the Mashbiach do with this lashon of davar acher? So he says the tevas davar acher who had goy de lomid echad. The fascinating thing, which he'll say, Mashbiach says many times in Yerushalmi, somebody was learning Yerushalmi, and he put in words. Now find that there was very few manuscripts of the Yerushalmi, and whatever manuscript was being used by the printers had the words davar acher in it, which was a note made by someone, and the person in the Yerushalmi then, when it printed from the manuscript, it put in this word davar acher, with these words davar acher, which shouldn't be there. Okay, so that's he says. He says now he says this loymate who put in this davar acher, he was wrong. He wasn't yotzei his obligation to be ma'ayin and what was going on. He messed up. Vein okay. It's not true. She did it Rabbi Shimon Levi atzmo kanal. There's also the words of Shimon Levi. The tzarich ligros there. And you learn this achar tevos atopes echad mehem. You say afterwards, you say this second drasha in name Rabbi Shimon Levi. Ba'im babavli usham mefurish Rabbi Shimon Levi ba'al marmar lo lazara. So I don't know if any of you remember that. I certainly don't remember it, but I haven't read Makkos recently. But evidently in the Bavli, the person who says the Amora Shimon Levi was on the borderline, Tana and Amoira. So there's Shimon Levi is the one who says, Lo lazara. So in the Yerushalmi, it also makes sense to say that he's the one who's saying it. So now he says, let me give you the sugya. Let me just explain it. And here he gives us the girsa which he wants to have in the Gemara. Rabbi Yossi, Rachina, Hakol you b'chal lo sign b'chulei. Yotzev asilo kasha zam la'sos la'chiv. Eshat yochol l'kayim bo v'asisim lo kasha zama. When you do kasha zama, ain't am l'kayim bo lo sign. You don't do lo sign. When you can't do Hasisa lo kasher zamam, I'm a kain bo lo sana. So here again, the Mashgiach moved the ain from the second line and put in the first line. This is what he read, just like Gillian Ephraim did, like I showed in the Gemara. So the one drasha he makes is when you have two punishments that Basin has a choice of imposing, they can only impose one of them. The same drasha they Rishasa. And by Sisem lo, also lo v'lo lazaro. He used that also to teach us that you only can do it to him and you can't penalize his children for what he did wrong. So now let's go back to the Gemara itself and see how we would read the Gemara and how it would not make it would be very difficult to make head or tail out of it. So let's go back to the Gemara itself. Well, we read this already. Let's go. Well, let's do it anyway. Right? Eshat yochel kain bo basisin lo kasher zaman, and mekain bo lo sana. That doesn't make sense. That's they put in the word ain, because what do you mean? You just said that asisim lo is kasher zaman is yotza. It's separate. It's different. So we can't say eshat yochel kain bo basisin lo kasher zaman, and mekain bo lo sana. They're not the same. They're two separate categories. So that's why all the Mefarshim say, no, the word ain in the next line has to go here. Right? Eshat yochel kaimbo v'sisel l'kash l'zamam v'gomer ain am kaimbo lo sana. They're two separate things. Vesh ain yochel kaimbo v'sisel l'kash l'zamam l'sos l'achiv. At mekayim, again, we took out the word ain and we moved it. They are when you can do kasha zaman, so then it defaults down to the regular low sana. Okay, so that was the gear, so we changed originally, and now it says so according to this understanding, if you put it here, so this is Rabbi Yosef Chanina giving a davar acher. The Mashbiach said it's very difficult to say. First of all, davar acher is not a lashon which we use in the Gemara, but besides that, we know Rabbi Shimon Levi in the Bavli is the author of the statement that lo v'lo lazaro. So if he takes out the davar acher, just erases. Okay, then as it says, Talmud put it in, was mistaken. Then basisim lo v'lo lazaro, he puts it later after Shimon Levi. Shimon Levi Amar basisim lo shnei dvarim mesula basin atovis echad mehem yatsa davar shemasel l'shamayim, supposed to something which is masel l'shamayim, and basisim lo v'lo lazaro. Okay, that is all the Mashbiach's suggestion for how to change the girsa. The other Mefarshim, such as Ridbaz, gives another interpretation of how to change the girsa. There's a classic example where the words of Yerushalmi have to be rearranged in order to be able to understand what's going on. And the Ephraim, who I usually find very, very clear. So let's he actually goes on to the next page, but we'll see what he says here. First he changes to the girsa as we said above. Then, well, actually, most of what he says goes on to the next page. So let's leave it for here. Let's not do the Ephraim now. We'll come back if you want to. Okay, so what I have here on the side of my Gemara written, from one of the times I learned it, is that when there's a possibility to parcel him, and also to parcel his children, and also to give Malchus. So from Lo Lazaro, we learn that we only can do one thing, only to punish him. So that's because there's a problem. How can you learn two things out of Asisim Lo Kasha Zaman? You can learn, you're going to learn today with Shaso, and you also want to learn that you can't do Lazaro. It seems that it's two separate drushes. And that's why whoever put in the Davar Acher, put in the Davar Acher. Because either it's one drush or the other. Make up you can't do both. But it seems, for the way the Mashgiach is learning, it seems that this has to be the pshat. Vasi Semlo says, oh, you can only do one thing to him. You can't do anything else. You can't do another punishment, and you also can't do anything to his children. So that way it becomes one drasha. It doesn't become Davar Acher. Vasi Semlo excludes everything else except one punishment for him. Any other punishment is not imposed. Okay. We have a few minutes left. Enough 9 minutes. Okay, no. I should tell you before we go on that there is the whole Yerushalmi Makkos is actually goes to Daf Ches Amud Aleph and then it stops. So obviously we're going to have a very easy time finishing this Amir Hashem. The reason why this is so is because we have no Yerushalmi on the third parak of Makkos. We have no idea why we don't have.
Right?
What?
It's Mishnayos, right?
Mishnayos, right. Actually, we don't know why. We don't know if it was lost or never written, but we don't have it. It's interesting because there's no Yerushalmi on Kutchin, and there is a famous forgery which was put out at the beginning of the 20th century by which took half of the Torah world by Yerushalmi on Kutchin. I wrote an article on it. At some point, I'll share the article with you. So
were you pro or con?
Oh, it's definitely fun. Anyway,
Is it like a story with Rochaim Kanievsky that he somehow disproved it?
It wasn't Rav Chaim, it was someone else. I heard something like this,
So
and then at the end of his life, he admitted it.
The Rogachover proved it.
Yeah.
The Rogachover proved it because he said it's too perfect. Because there in every
was this the thing where it said
by
that
every
sisters,
there's a new Abayra?
By every Masechta, yeah, is that this story?
Yes.
Yeah, I remember hearing that.
Right, and there Yerushalmi and Kutchin, there's no new Amora. Very good.
Yeah.
Okay, so Ksiv, we're in the last line now on Amud Aleph. Ksiv v'loyachel zaro b'amav. It says the Kohen should not desecrate his children. Eli ella zera shemiskal. Okay, so it sounds that only the zera is miskal. What about the woman? Or the Kohen has relations with a woman who's also to him, right? Let's say a Kohen Gadol with an Amona, just to make it more simpler. So how do we know that she can no longer, even though an Amona can normally marry a Kohen, how do we know that she can't marry a Kohen? How do we know that when the Kohen Gadol has relations with an Amona, not just the child is possible, but also she's possible as well. She's mechuleles. So only ela zera shemischalo. I only know that the children are mischalo. He atzma minayin. How do we know she herself becomes chalala? V'dinu. So it's a kavachomer. Uma ima zera shelo avar avera. This is not in the Bavli here. I'm in the Bavli here in Makkos. Ma ima zera shelo avar avera areu mischalo. If the children who didn't do an avera are mischalo, he she'avra avera eno din shedischalo. So she who did do an avera is not a kavachomer should be mischalo. If the person who didn't do an avera becomes a cholo, so certainly the person who did do an avera, the mother should become a chalola. Says more, no, that's not a good kavachomer. Who atzmo yochiyach? Because he himself demonstrates that not true. Because the she'avra avera, going to go out of relations with the Amona was over an avera. Ve'enu miskala. So he doesn't become a cholo. Once he divorces this woman, he goes back to being a regular Kohen. So evidently it has nothing to do with avera. Must be there's some other reason why a person becomes a cholo, doesn't become a cholo. Says Mark, no, not necessarily. It's a general principle. A man never becomes a Kohen never becomes a cholo. A Kohen is always a Kohen. He when he's at the time he's married to a woman he shouldn't be married to, so we don't give him the privileges of a Kohen, but that's temporarily. A man never becomes a Kohen. The general principle, right? So therefore, a woman does become a chalala. And not if a guy has relations with a woman, she becomes a chalala. If an Eved has relations with a woman, she becomes a chalala. So therefore, in this case as well, since when the Kohen has relations with a woman who's also to him, she becomes a chalala as well. Okay. So since everywhere she becomes a mekuleles, so here too she becomes a mekuleles as well. Vim navshecha lomar. Now, if you don't like my kal v'chomer, im navshecha lomar means if you want to say differently, right? And you don't like my kal v'chomer, because after all, spine analysis, here she be mechulas. Yeah, she's mechulas in other places.
Like the Tema in Bali?
No, it's not like the Tema. It's like let's see the Pnei Moshe here. Pnei Moshe says in Ashka Lomar, the Meikar the Dina Pircha. You don't there's a flaw in the base Kavachomer, in the basic Kavachomer. Mehechi Maislemi Zaro. Where you want to bring it? Where do you want to learn out from? From Zaro, from his children. Mala Zaro Shkeni Tzuras Bavera. In a final analysis, the way Pnei Moshe says, you can't learn out from the children, because the children they were created by Avera. How do you know about the woman who wasn't created by Avera? She just committed an Avera now. So he's saying that the Kal V'chomer is not in Nashkol Lomar, the way Pnei Moshe explains it. So then, you know, and it's not. You're right. It's not brought down in the Gemara here in any detail, but that's the way Pnei